From that first impression when a customer walks through your door, to how well your assets perform every day, you're the ones leading the way. Today, you're facing a changing world, which means you're tackling more challenges than ever before. You're embracing the unknown, making strategic decisions, and finding fresh, innovative ways to run your business. You've risen to the challenge, you have momentum, and no one is going to slow you down. And you know transparency and data are key to moving your business forward. ServiceChannel provides you with the insights you need to reduce costs, improve quality, ensure compliance, and be confident in every decision so you can focus on what's ahead. ServiceChannel is with you every step of the way. We will continue to move forward. We will build a better future together.
Thanks for joining us today for our session, Art of Agility, How to Adapt to Continuous Change. I'm Vijay Ramakrishnan from ServiceChannel and your host for today's session. We're living in a period of continuous change now. Health regulations are changing on a week-by-week and county-by-county basis. Many of your companies have experienced changes to both budgets and staffing levels, even as you're partnering with operations to implement changes to the customer experience and implement new protocols for cleaning and safety. And many of you have experienced disruptions to your provider network as well. Staying agile through these changes can be challenging, and each of our speakers today will be sharing insights on how you can do that. First, I'll be having a conversation with Franco Handlin from AMC Theaters, who will tell us about the challenges that his team had to face and how the ServiceChannel platform help them chart a course through those changes. Next, Zach Wolf from ServiceChannel will cover key platform capabilities that our customers have found particularly helpful. You'll walk away with a deeper understanding of the tools at your disposal that will keep you agile through the unique changes of 2020 and how these tools can apply in the future as well. Since the theme is agility, let's get going and check in with Franco Handlin from AMC Theaters. Thanks so much for joining us, Franco. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. Let's kick things off by having you introduce yourself to the audience a little bit. Tell them about what you do and your responsibilities.
Thanks, Vijay. Thanks for having me. So I am the Director of Facility Support for AMC Theaters. My team, we oversee all the 600-ish theaters we have in the United States from a facilities repair and maintenance perspective. We have 8 regional facility engineers based throughout the country. They each have a region of theaters they're responsible for that they go do site visits at, as well as be there on the other end of that phone when things break and our theater teams need help. And then together with those 8 facility engineers, we also have 2 managers that support them and myself in the department.
Great. Now, last 6 months have probably been a roller coaster for you guys. Just talk us through at a high level what the timelines look like.
Yeah, what a year. So, you know, we, just like everybody else back in March, had to deal with an unexpected and almost immediate shutdown across the country all at once. So we immediately put out a closing checklist for our theaters to perform as we tried to predict everything that possibly could go wrong while we were closed. And remember, at that time, we weren't sure how long we were going to be closed for. So we put out a closing checklist. We also had a sustaining checklist. Once all of our theaters were closed, we still did keep some managers going theater to theater, checking on buildings every week. So we provided them with the checklist. And they were really our eyes and ears for our theaters while we were closed. And they would perform some duties in the theaters. They would also create tickets within the platform, within the ServiceChannel platform, for repairs and items that they saw while they were visiting our theaters.
So, and then, once that closing period happened, talk to us about like reopening, the partial reopenings.
Yes, we were excited to reopen, and once we got the okay to start reopening, We brought GMs and theater teams back, and then they had a few weeks actually to get their facilities ready and to get their teams ready for the new normal. And we were able to pivot. While we were closed, we quickly changed all of our ticketing. The tickets that would come in, instead of going straight to vendors, we rerouted those to our team. And so we were able to review every single ticket that was being created across the circuit to see what truly needed to be repaired, was critical to be repaired for the infrastructure of the building, and then what maybe could be deferred until we were closer to reopening. And then once we got to reopening, to that period where we were ramping up to reopen, we could easily identify what needed to be fixed in order for us to reopen.
Great. And so, besides kind of the rerouting of the tickets, in the period that you were closed, what other kind of service channel capabilities did you lean on?
Yeah, it was great timing with the label function. That came in very handy. So kudos and thank you to the ServiceChannel team. Our team was able, as we were reviewing tickets, we created labels once that ticket had been reviewed. And generally speaking, we would reroute them to vendors and label them accordingly, or we would defer it with the appropriate label as well as something that we felt was maybe more cosmetic or not as critical to our reopening. So leaning into that was really beneficial for us.
So you guys did, really thorough job of like collecting information and labeling it and categorizing it as you were closed. When it came time to think about reopening, like how was that information in the system valuable to executives?
It was great. And when we had to decide where we could reopen, we would look at, what repairs do we need to make to get this building reopened? And we're able to compare that with our expected attendance and revenue. We're going into the big unknown at that time. We weren't sure how many people would be coming back and how many guests we would have. So we would be able to project based upon our expected attendance and compare the cost of reopening to the revenue that might be coming in. So in some situations, we had a few leases that were very close to near term. And so we really weighed the pros and cons of reopening perhaps for a month or so before the lease ended. And in some situations, we just decided it really didn't make financial sense for us to reopen, and we kept some locations closed.
That's great, Franco. I think what strikes me about what you just said is like how you were able to have all that information and having collected it, and making that decision about reopening and all those various decisions about reopening, you could do it on kind of, on the basis of information that was a lot richer and a lot more complete. I think that's great. As you moved into reopening and operations as you reopened, did you change how tickets were routed and prioritized?
We did, and we were changing it from the moment we closed throughout our closure period to our ramp up into our reopening and now our open period. And what was great is two different things. One, we would start to open some tickets up that would go directly to our vendors. So anything that dealt with life safety issues, of course, those would go directly to the vendors. We need those fixed. But then there were other maybe more cosmetic issues or some of our equipment repairs that might be needed that we still kept routed internally for us to review. And then on top of that, we were able to tweak the SLAs and the priorities of tickets. When we were open back in February, if something broke on a Saturday night, that's an emergency for us. That's when we're making our most profit. But when we're closed, something breaks on a Saturday, as long as it's not a huge catastrophic deal, it can wait till Monday. So we were able to go in and change SLAs as well. And then on the reopening time, we would obviously update those accordingly as well. And so those tactics really helped us to control and control our expense and just make smarter, better decisions on what we were repairing and what we would defer.
Yeah. Speaking of controlling expenses, when we were talking earlier, and we were talking about the fact that every location has multiple screens, so you have a little bit of flexibility in terms of capacity, at each location. Talk to us about how having that little flexibility changed, some of your decisions on, how you were handling your tickets.
Sure. There were times where, we might have something break in an auditorium, and in our current climate, we don't necessarily need every single screen right now. We have limited capacity. We have capacity restrictions put on us. currently, like a lot of other businesses do. So a theater that typically has 24 screens, if there was a critical item that was broken in one of those auditoriums, on some situations we decided we just won't repair it. We just won't show movies in that auditorium, and it's really not needed right now. So we could stretch our repairs a little bit longer and help defer more expenses that way. In addition, on our equipment side, we have obviously redundant equipment in our kitchens and in our concession stands. And so we don't need all that capacity right now. We're slower than we typically are, so we don't need to have as many refrigerators and freezers operational. So what's great about the platform is we're able to track where those are down, so we know that, and we know as our attendance picks back up, we'll be able to quickly identify where we need to go back and make those repairs.
That's great. That's great. You know, again, it's just another example of like having all the information in a central place, so you can make the choices that you need to make moment to moment. You know, as situations change and everything about the business changes. Let's just wrap it up on that note of change. Like, what advice do you have for people going through periods of constant change like this?
Well, number one, you have to be adaptable, but I think you said it best. It's data is king. You need to have the data to make educated decisions. So, lean into the platform, house all the data, create the tickets, even if you're going to defer the work, so you have all that information you need to make better decisions.
That's great, Franco. Great way to wrap it up. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much, on behalf of everyone that's at the session for sharing your experience and insights.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you, Vijay. Thank you, ServiceChannel.
Franco and AMC Theaters have done great work in putting data to use to drive decisions as they navigate through the changes of 2020. For the next portion of today's session, Zach from ServiceChannel will be giving you a closer look at some of the tools that can be particularly helpful for navigating the unique requirements created by COVID. But he'll also be pointing out how these tools can be helpful in a much broader range of situations as well, and how you can really extend the value of adopting these powerful capabilities. With that, I'll hand it over to Zach.
Thanks, Vijay. Hi, I'm Zach Wolf, Director of Product at ServiceChannel. I've been with the company for 2 years, focused on facilities management, though, for the last 11. Let's take a minute and talk about COVID. COVID has changed everything. We all have had to adapt to a world that looks and acts very different than 2019. And with a new environment comes new challenges, and the need for adaptations to meet those obstacles head on. Fortunately, ServiceChannel has the tools that allow you to adapt to the new normal of COVID. Closings and reopenings, incident response, protocol communication and enforcement, critical data collection, situational escalations, and work codification, as well as the reporting related to budgets and regulations. While the tools that I will cover today have been invaluable to many clients during the recent months, and whatever's immediately ahead of us, as we look to a post-COVID world, these very same tools can become a reliance for the always unpredictable reality of facilities management. First, let's talk about inspections. Whether you have locations reopening for the very first time, or you need to reopen after an infection incident, facilities teams need to perform site walkthroughs in order to determine readiness to reopen. Let's say an employee has tested positive for COVID. What's your protocol for that location? Do you close it, perform an inspection, and identify the path to reopen? Well, if so, site planning is the tool for you. Site Planning Manager allows you to perform inspections of your facilities, determining the conditions of assets and areas within. As issues are identified, users can create work orders to resolve those problems. The results of these audits can be exported into reports to be shared as needed. For reopening inspections, perform facility audits that allow you to weigh the impact on reopening, determine pass or fail criteria, request notes and photos, as well as request remediation action via work order creation. In a post-COVID world, tools like site planning that have allowed you to adopt and ensure that your locations are ready to reopen are still invaluable to your ability to effectively manage your facilities. As we all know, brand matters, and the conditions of our locations impacts brand satisfaction. We also rely heavily on our store employees to tell us when there are issues that will impact our brand. Tools like Site Planning Manager allow you to better identify the things that matter in a clear audit, whether locations perform them or corporate facilities personnel. Also, safety doesn't end with COVID. Safety has been a core issue of facilities from day one. For instance, fire and life safety inspections, in order to ensure that everything is up to code, is an important task. Site planning allows you to better structure the collection of data and remediation of any potential violations. Prioritizing COVID-related work. Need to prioritize issues related to COVID? Want to ensure that the proper deep cleanings are administered in at-risk situations? How do you identify which issues are COVID-related and which are not? Ask your staff using interactive troubleshooting. Interactive troubleshooting allows you to present your location users with questions based on their issue list selections when initiating work order creation. By asking questions related to COVID like, is this a COVID-related issue? What kind of cleaning is needed? How long has it been since the infection incident? You can not only identify that the issue is related to COVID or not, but you can reroute and reprioritize the work order accordingly. For example, if the work is related to a post-infection confirmed incident, you may want to increase the priority and bring in a specialist cleaner. COVID didn't make interactive troubleshooting valuable to a facility manager. It just simply shed light on a key use case. Being able to triage work orders effectively prior to ever having a tech set foot on site is a tool that allows facility managers to save their business real money. If an issue like a row of lights out can be resolved by a store employee flipping a breaker switch, this avoided work order saves the company money and solves the issue more quickly. Even if the issue cannot be resolved by the location staff, but they can identify the parts needed to fix the issue. For example, 12 light bulbs need to be replaced. This could help ensure that the technician who arrives is prepared to fix the issue the first time, not having to go out and get the parts after arriving. This decreases trip charges and resolution time. Communicating protocols. Do you have a new COVID protocol that providers must follow? Are they aware and are they required to wear masks and socially distance? Are there new cleaning requirements that you are asking of them? How can you communicate with providers and ensure that they will adhere to your protocols? That's where Compliance Manager comes in. Compliance Manager allows you to ensure that providers are meeting your business requirements before ever getting a work order. Once active in your network, facilities teams can monitor provider compliance with existing and new initiatives. Using Compliance Manager, you can send a communication to all or even a select group of your providers, notifying them of the new on-site protocols related to COVID. With Compliance Manager's ability to create custom requirements, you can also add your protocol within the application and request that providers acknowledge it. This allows you to track those who have read it and done so. For providers who are not acknowledging your protocols, you can place them on a do not dispatch list. This will temporarily skip them from getting any work assignments. Policies, protocols, requirements, they didn't start with COVID. It may have been brought front and center, but they were always there. Using Compliance Manager, you can require that providers submit their certificate of insurance each time, before it expires. Within the tool, you can review and approve or reject their COI as necessary. The financial risk of, let's say, an injury while on site and not covered is significant, as we all know. Being the risk mitigator is often an unsung hero, but when that person is not there and the worst happens, it's felt throughout the entire business. For providers unwilling or unable to comply with your insurance requirements, or be that any other business requirement, the Do Not Dispatch list is an effective tool. Prevent those providers from receiving work while you work with them to rectify the issue, or just give yourself more time to find a permanent solution. How do we reinforce these protocols? While Compliance Manager is a great tool for letting your providers know about your new protocols related to COVID, some of your policies may not make it downstream to the technicians coming on site. How do you ensure that those individuals on site are adhering to your policies? Introducing work order checklists. Checklists allow you to create a list of questions that technicians can or are required to answer when performing work on site. Using ServiceChannel Provider Mobile, data collected from the completed checklist can be pulled into analytics and used to make better business decisions. Using checklists, you can inform the technician directly regarding your expectations and even require them to acknowledge said protocols right from their smart device after they initiate check-in. Bonus, need to ensure that proper HEPA filters are installed in your HVAC, or just whether or not your location staff are wearing masks. Ask the tech with a checklist. Checklists aren't only for COVID. Checklists are a tried and true tool for preventive maintenance. Want to ensure that your assets are maintained to the level of thoroughness throughout all of your locations? Add a checklist to the work order with explicit steps so that your tech can follow. Even collect data about asset conditions, readings, and measurements. By analyzing this data, you gain insight into your assets and make better business decisions. With new protocols and requirements being placed on visits from technicians, how do you confirm that these policies are being adhered to? Wouldn't you like to know, did the tech wear a mask at all times while they were on site? Did they maintain social distance? Did they properly clean the workspace before leaving? We can all agree that understanding whether or not these protocols are being followed is vital to increasing our confidence in operating our locations safely during COVID. Custom feedback questions allow you to capture more information from your location staff as they leave reviews on completed work. Above and beyond the star rating, the custom feedback questions allow you to collect specific feedback you are hoping to quantify about the work being performed at your locations. Create a cycle where you understand more about what's actually happening on site. For technicians that are not successfully adhering to your protocols, this insight allows you to take remediatory action by following up with providers. Create a safe work environment for your store employees. This is a critical task during COVID. As you can imagine, understanding more about what is happening within your locations isn't something that goes away in a post-COVID world. Having more insight into the work being done under your purview allows you to be smarter and make better decisions. For example, understanding the location staff's sentiment about the work being done allows you to prove the value of facilities to the business. Hard numbers on cost savings can be bundled with the positive feedback of location staff, showing that facilities helps create a positive, safe environment. Think about posing feedback questions like, was the work completed with high satisfactory quality? Was the overall experience of the work order process positive? Was communication related to the service performed in a timely manner? Lastly, do you need to understand the impact of COVID on your facilities? Of course you do. Silly question. Want to identify trends related to COVID's impact on the budget? Look to work order labels. This feature enables you to add a label to a work order. Labeling multiple work orders with the same label allows you to review that grouping via filtering on the work order list, where you can take action as needed. The work order labels report in Analytics allows you to stay on top of pending and open items by the label applied. Label your COVID-related work orders and start tracking them through the process and within Analytics. Use the data available to you to identify trends. Communicating these trends, whether budgetary or health-related, to your business stakeholders can really make facilities look like a hero. What is facilities management if not a constant flow of incidents and initiatives thrown at our locations? If it's not COVID, it's a hurricane or a wildfire. It's civil unrest or power outage. It's a reformat of a whole location or a major retrofit. The only constant in facilities management is that there will constantly be the next incident or initiative. Labels is your tool to help get a grasp on these events. Create labels as needed, tag work orders, and analyze your data. Don't be overwhelmed by incidents and initiatives. Master them. Facilities teams around the world have risen to the occasion time and time again to weather whatever changes the world throws at them. While COVID has presented difficulties like few others in modern times, the tools I've covered today can help you be more agile in the face of these challenges. And as you look to these tools to help you adapt to the changes posed by COVID, evaluate how they can help you in general. Because adapting to change is the one constant in the world of facilities.
Thanks, Zach. As Franco touched on during his talk, and Zach just covered in depth, there are a wealth of tools available to you to stay agile through constant change. And many of these tools can support you in a broad range of situations. If you'd like to take advantage of any of them, please reach out to your CSM. We'd love to help you make the most of this platform.